There's something quietly revealing about a 40-minute BBC election discussion that covers everything from Welsh voting systems to a Scottish politician's boat collection and manages to mention illegal channel crossings exactly 0 times. I've just been listening back to a pre-election newscast episode. It features some of the BBC's most senior political journalists, Laura Kuenssberg, Chris Mason. They're doing a thorough job of setting the scene ahead of local elections in England, the Scottish Parliament vote, and the Welsh Senate election. It's a serious, well-produced piece of journalism, and yet immigration comes up once, a single sentence. Felicity Evans, covering Wales, notes almost in passing that immigration features heavily for some voters and is a motivator for reform supporters. That's it, one clause, then the conversation moves on. Now, why does that matter? Because if you look at any polling of voters' concerns right now, immigration consistently sits near the top, not near the bottom, not in the middle, near the top. Alongside the NHS and cost of living, it is one of the defining anxieties of the British electorate in 2025. Voters raise it on doorsteps. It drives party switching. It is a significant part of the reason Reform UK is polling where it is polling. And yet in 40 minutes of informed senior political analysis, it receives roughly 8 words. The journalists on this program are good at their jobs. That's not the point. The point is what the editorial choices of a program like this reveal about how a certain section of the British media establishment still instinctively frames elections. The framing here is almost entirely about party management. Will Starmer survive? Can Labour hold Wales? Who owns the narrative of change in Scotland? These are legitimate questions, but they are questions that treat elections primarily as expressions of what the public actually wants. When James Cook is asked what voters keep raising on the Scottish campaign trail, he gives an honest answer: cost of living, the economy, housing, the NHS. He doesn't mention immigration. Maybe it genuinely didn't come up much in Scotland. Fair enough. But across England and Wales, the picture from other reporting is quite different. And here's the thing that I find most interesting. Reform UK's support, which all 3 contributors acknowledge is significant and growing across all 3 nations, is discussed almost entirely in terms of its structural impact on other parties. Will it squeeze the Conservatives in Scotland? Can it win in Wales? These are valid analytical questions, but the reason Reform is attracting voters in the first place, the actual substance of why people are switching, is largely left unexplored. Malcolm Offord's boats get more airtime than the policy concerns driving millions of people toward a party that didn't exist in its current form 3 years ago. I want to be fair here. This is a pre-election podcast, not a policy program. It is designed to orient listeners around what to watch for on results night, not to conduct a deep analysis of every issue in the campaign. I understand that. But editorial choices still reflect priorities, and the priority here, as in much mainstream political broadcasting, is the internal mechanics of political parties rather than the external reality of why voters are behaving the way they are. There is a version of this conversation where someone asks, why is Reform polling at this level? What are the specific concerns that are pushing people there? And someone gives a genuinely probing answer that engages with the substance of those concerns, including on immigration. That conversation didn't happen here. What we got instead was Felicity Evans making an astute observation about Labour voters potentially becoming indifferent rather than hostile. The X analogy was a good one, and Chris Mason giving a genuinely thoughtful closing thought about the psychology of the electorate driving the numbers. Good analysis, just analysis that exists at the level of political positioning rather than public mood. The BBC will cover these results extensively, and I'll be watching, but I'll also be watching to see whether, as the results come in and the Reform numbers become impossible to ignore, the question of why finally gets as much attention as the question of who. Because right now, in at least this corner of British political broadcasting, it isn't even close. If you found that analysis useful, subscribe to The Rational Brit. I cover British politics without the spin, just clear thinking about what's actually going on and why it matters. Hit the bell if you want to be notified when new videos go up. And if you've got a take on this, whether you think I'm right, wrong, or missing something, leave it in the comments. I do read them. I'll see you in the next one.